It's a little unfortunate that I did my show about the changes happening in journalism earlier this week because, just yesterday, Peter St. Onge decided that he would talk about AI and how it is replacing legacy media and how everybody's scared and how there needs to be changes. And during my show, I said, look, I am promising that you will never have AI avatar Rucker using AI avatar voice with AI written content to try to present to you the news. I'll always just find the news, read it, listen to it, watch it, assess it, and then give you my honest opinion. Now, there is technically there are two scenarios in which I'm okay with use of AI when it comes to the news. Number one, when it comes to reporting and collecting data from across the web, as a tool, it's very good. We use AI to collect information, to do research, and even to write full-blown articles. But every single article that we have written by AI has to be viewed by an individual. It has to be read and edited because we don't want any AI slop. We actually use AI to fact-check AI. I know it sounds all sorts of weird, but that's only, and that's only specifically for news. I don't need a high-dollar writer to sit there and say, President Trump said this, and then transcribing it. If it's news, it's news, and as long as AI is treating it as the news, if anything, it comes across with less bias. So there's that. Praise God for that aspect of it. But again, we use it sparingly. The other component is that it is good for reading long blocks of text. I can't read very well. I mean, I read great, like I can read fine. I can't read out loud very well. I would never, if I ever got into politics, Lord, God forbid, but if I ever did become a politician, they would try to stick a teleprompter in front of me. I couldn't do it. Not going to be Obama or anybody. I mean, even President Trump uses a teleprompter, even though I think he's much better when he's off the cuff. Whatever. I sound not good or smart when I read from teleprompter. It's just bad. So that's why I don't use them. So for long blocks of text, I have AI voice rucker, but I don't pretend. It's like, okay, I'm going to use AI voice rucker to read this very long block of text. And I use that like once or twice a month, maybe. I can't even remember the last time I used it. Point is that, yes, on one hand, putting legacy media on notice, letting them know that the discovery of content, the discovery of news is not just people tuning in and going to CNN or Fox News and being told what to think or even given the news in bits and pieces at the rate that the channel wants to deliver it. AI makes it to where you don't have to do that. You want to thinking about a subject, go search it. I know you could have done that with Google too, but there was a difference. Google would just send traffic. Now Google is actually using AI to give you the answer so that you don't ever have to even click off of it. I think everybody's seen that if you use Google, which I rarely use it. With all that said, here's Peter St. Onge with his take on all of that.
Legacy media could lose half its audience as people go to AI instead. Can journalists learn how to walk a dog? For a century, the media has told us they are democracy's immune system when it turned out they are democracy's cancer, and AI is the chemo. According to a new Pew study, when Google puts an AI summary at the top of search, it gobbles up 92% of the audience, leaving just 8% to visit CNN. Now, keep in mind that's just Google's AI. Toss in people who just go direct to ChatGPT or Grok instead of wading through a 1,200-word New Yorker hit piece on Trump's helipad. So bad, major sites are now delisting from Google, throwing away their main audience source to stop Google scraping their content. So the background is before AI media was simple, write the story, optimize for Google clicks, sell ads. Google would scrape your content, sure, but they paid you in eyeballs. With AI, you get the summary and punchline for free. The actual article's got to sing for its supper. And turns out, not many articles can sing for their supper, with Reuters projecting search traffic to news sites will fall nearly half in 3 years with no end in sight. course, it's not just the AI. Media shot itself in the foot, throwing away credibility and authority for nakedly partisan reporting. Trust in traditional media is down to just 1 in 4 Americans and 1 in 7 Republicans. That's hit media consumption to the point most Americans get their news from social media and AI chatbots already, not traditional media. That's where it gets interesting because the eyeballs are not going away, they are migrating. Joe Rogan famously is the most popular podcast in the world. Substack has grown 5-fold since 2021. Hundreds of YouTubers you have never heard of get more views than the entire CNN universe. Tucker's interview with Donald Trump got nearly 250 million views, which is roughly 80 times his Fox audience. AI accelerates all of this because it replaces left-wing media slop with multiple points of view, and often by people who know the topic much better than journalism majors who are experts in literally nothing. This matters because even with CBS and maybe CNN now going conservative, we're still swamped by the communists and media, but those commanding heights themselves are evaporating. Very roughly, the internet itself, so social media and blogs, took us from a media that was almost monolithically dominated by progressives. The 1970s, before Fox and Rush, you could probably fit the entire conservative media into a living room, and it took it to maybe 2/3 legacy media and 1/3 independents before AI. That was already driving mass layoffs and consolidation with the number of journalists in America, newspapers down nearly 3/4, and even TV laying off in the face of YouTubers and independents. If AI is now coming for half the audience, that alone takes us to a world with a roughly 50-50 split in media between independents and implying another major contraction for legacy media. Layoff analyst Challenger Gray estimates media layoffs are now running 20,000 a year, which is about 1 in 10 remaining journalists every year, while independent creators, of course, explode. So what's next, brought to you by the Bitcoin Way. Aside from their corruption, our supposed intellectual elite is characterized by a kind of ideological DEI, where the people on top are surprisingly second-rate for the authority they command. You probably noticed this during COVID. Now that AI can replace second-rate in about 3 sentences, that elite is running on fumes. Give it another 10 years, and we will not have a legacy media. Quick bit of housekeeping. After 3.5 years and over 900 videos, I'm changing up the format. Instead of a short video every day, I'll be doing one longer video every Friday, recapping the week's top stories, what happened, why it matters, what's next. The videos will be available exclusively on my free Substack, so to keep watching, head over to profsatanj.com and subscribe. It is completely free. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.
I know I keep talking about Democrats, Socialists of America, Marxists, the people that are trying to destroy us, but I also tend to go right back to the other side of the Red-Green Alliance, the green side, the Islamist side. And there was a report. I'm actually going to do it in 2 parts. I'm going to play one part, then I'm going to comment on it. Then I'm going to play you the other part, and I'm going to comment on it, because I don't want to just let the whole thing play because it's like 12 minutes. So I'm going to cut it in half-ish and then give you my commentary. This comes from CBN, who sometimes they do fantastic work. Sometimes I'm not sure who they are. This is an example of fantastic work.
A political earthquake threatens to reshape America. Last November, a record 42 Muslim Americans swept into public office, an unprecedented shift. Leading the pack, Zohran Mamdani, becoming New York City's mayor. His win sent shockwaves through the political establishment. With midterm elections just months away, analysts foresee a Mamdani effect, and its influence is only growing. Sam Westrup, Middle East Forum Islamist Watch director, says these Muslim electoral gains are no accident, calling them the result of a decades-long strategy of lobbying and candidate training first implemented in late 2000.
What's happening now in New York, in New Jersey, indeed in Michigan and across the country, is we're seeing the fruits of those efforts. Decades of development by Islamist radicals into building the infrastructure that is now allowing dangerous radicals to run for office.
8 years ago, Muslim American voters made history by propelling Rashida Tlaib of Michigan and Ilhan Omar of Minnesota into Congress as the first Muslim women to serve on Capitol Hill. Today, a new wave is poised for even bigger breakthroughs, especially in deep blue states, where energized Muslim communities can carry outsized influence in low turnout primaries. Behind the headlines, however, a more complicated story is unfolding. While some candidates, like New Jersey's Adam Hamawi, have impressive public service records, critics say there's more beneath the surface.
Hamawi has a history of involvement with Islamist causes. Recent allegations have surfaced regarding his role as a witness in a terrorism trial many years ago.
In 1995, Hamawi testified in defense of Omar Abdel Rahman, known as the Blind Sheikh, accused of masterminding the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Though Hamawi has since distanced himself, critics argue his testimony minimized the Sheikh's extremism, raising new questions about his judgment. In 2024 and again in 2025, Hamawi volunteered as a doctor in Gaza. His work at a hospital in Khan Yunis, praised by some and questioned by others. His trip sponsored by the Palestinian American Medical Association, a group dogged by accusations of Hamas ties, allegations firmly denied by the group.
So there are concerns about Hamawi, and the best thing that he could do is to explain his relationship with some of these radical organizations in the United States. The silence on his part is concerning to me, and he's not the only candidate that happily looks the other way.
Publicly, Hamawi condemns anti-Semitism and the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israeli civilians. At the same time, he criticizes Israel, calling it an apartheid state, labeling its Gaza campaign as genocide, and demanding Washington cut military aid. Other prominent Muslim candidates sharing those views include New York primary winners Dominican Daria-Liza Avila Chevalier and Palestinian Abra Kawas, as well as Egyptian-born Michigan senatorial candidate Abdul El Sayed.
There's no doubt about his Islamist affiliations. He is heavily and openly backed by some pretty dangerous groups. He has a long-standing history of involvement with Islamist organizations in Michigan. So we should be concerned, deeply concerned about him.
Westrup and others believe all Americans should be concerned. Because if Islamists gain enough seats in state legislatures and Congress, radical agendas could become law. Primary winners Chevalier and Kawas are closely affiliated with the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA. Some of their critics fear the strengthening of a red-green alliance, Muslims working with leftists to impose a radical agenda of expansive government control. Jewish Americans say anti-Israel rhetoric from the left and Islamist office holders could also fuel a surge in anti-Semitic hate crimes. Others warn that Sharia law could spread in segregated Muslim enclaves, such as East Plano, Texas. That concern has led to the Sharia-Free America Caucus. Are their fears overblown, unwarranted?
I remember British Islamists 10, 20 years ago doing exactly this in Northern England. And it led to deeply segregated societies. And it was these Islamist communities in Northern England from where radicals emerged who would radicalize to join foreign terror groups or commit acts of terror at home. Those radicalization recruits came from these deeply segregated, isolated communities.
On his YouTube channel, former Muslim Danny Bermawi, founder and head of the Ideological Defense Institute, predicts efforts to ban Sharia law in the U.S. will fail.
When the founding fathers wrote the Constitution, they were not thinking about Islam. You cannot ban Sharia. It will always be protected under the First Amendment as part of religious freedom.
Westrup believes enough Islamist victories in state assemblies and Congress pose a threat to American foreign policy and U.S. taxpayers.
I think we should be particularly worried about the direction of public money to radicals. Both the left and right have given huge amounts of money, of public money, federal state money, to Islamists over the past few decades. I worry that these Islamist candidates will increase that flow.
To prevent this, Bermawi insists the solution starts with recognizing Islam as a political system, not just a religion.
Recognize that large parts of its function as a political ideology, similar to communism or fascism. Islam is not just a religion. Islam has a religion. Islam is a political ideology that seeks to acquire power and impose its system on society. That is not a religion, and do not separate that political component by calling it Islamism, as if it has nothing to do with Islam. It is Islam.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
It's a message that I myself have been trying to get out there for a very long time. The understanding that Islam is unique in the way that its true adherents, the way that they operate in this world. Okay, as Christians, we're supposed to live by the book, right? We're supposed to be repentant. We're supposed to pray. We're supposed to do our thing, live our lives, and be great examples to the world, and to spread the word, of course. And this, you can say the same thing about other religions. Some other religions, not all of them, actually most of them are very much more personalized and sort of weird. Islam is very unique in that it isn't, you're supposed to have the faith and live your life by it. It's that you're supposed to live Islamically, live under Sharia, live for jihad, and use the faith, the religion aspect of it in the promotion of conquest. And this goes all the way back. Okay, it dates all the way back to Muhammad. Okay, Muhammad, he forged together various religions, or one religion, or one teaching, we'll call it, based upon his understanding and learning about all these various religions out there. It's like, oh, that'll work. That can get people going, you know. Oh, you guys get virgins after you die. Awesome. We'll do that too. I mean, that's literally how it was done. Okay, to be clear, how Muhammad came up with this stuff. There's a reason why it is a compilation of various religions. It's a reason why his lack of understanding of these other religions is what he was mimicking them, but he's not able to mimic them perfectly. He believes, for example, or believed, he's dead, but in Islam, his writings, his teachings were that the Trinity is God the Father, Jesus, and Mary. I mean, I'm at a loss, but that's because he had a misunderstanding. That's it. He was reading from the wrong false gospel, not reading because he couldn't read, but he was hearing from the wrong false gospels, and came up with some weird version of a faith. But again, with the notion that, hey, if I can use this to get enough people to follow me, then we can go and conquer. They have always, from the dawn of Islam, they've always used their religion for conquest. But it's not all just about swords and military conquest. Sometimes it's just about, hey, we're not here, but we're going to be here, and we're going to spread, and we're going to spread politically and culturally. It's dangerous, and it's happening here in the United States. All we got to do is look to France, which brings me to part 2 of the CBN report.
There was a French study last year on the rise of Islam within France and just the number of mosques that seemed to be multiplying. 100 years ago, there weren't any mosques in France, and now there are thousands. And it was all because they were a colonial power. They ran Algeria, they ran Lebanon, they ran Syria, and they wanted to receive people into their culture in this multicultural paradise. But the government has now concluded that the Muslim Brotherhood is trying to influence vast areas of French culture and society, not just the politics, but everything. And they've coined this phrase, entryism, that it's a precursor to Sharia law taking over, but they want to do it very sort of gradually over time. That's why they're calling it entryism. So look at these things and realize the Muslim Brotherhood is very organized and very robust. They're the reason Hamas exists. They're the reason the Houthis exist. They have apparently vast sums available to them from both Turkey and Qatar. And you look at these things and you go, this isn't some accident. Here's another stat for you that I hope wakes you up. When the imam calls for votes, the community turns out, and they turn out in incredible numbers. 97% vote in accordance with the directive. That isn't that I've been involved in politics. That's unheard of to see that kind of unity within a community. So when they get organized, even though they're right now a minority, what does that mean going forward? Are we going to see continual victories because they maintain a very solid voting bloc? The other issue, and this is a big one, is the political and PR issue. So you just saw in that story, Palestinian American Medical Association. Well, that's a made-up group, and they're getting their funding primarily to advance Palestinian narratives within the medical community of the United States. So watch out for that. When you see Palestinian American, realize what's coming on. It is a propaganda machine. They are trying to get people to say, well, what Israel is doing in Gaza is genocide. And if you don't agree with them, then they're going to come out with these position papers against you and whatever you want to do within the medical community or the psychiatric community. Anything that requires some kind of election, they're going to have these things going on. Let's waken ourselves to this. If we remember the misinformation that came out of the Gaza Ministry of Health, just the sheer number of lies and bad stories that were repeated around the world, that's going to increasingly happen. That's their playbook. We're calling it entryism right now, but the whole point of Sharia, the whole point of the call to prayer being announced over a city, the whole point of gathering in a city square, a city street, shutting things down and having a call to prayer publicly where you bow down in the street, that is to say we are looking for political domination. We are looking to establish Sharia law here. It's a declaration of occupation. It's not some kind of freedom of religion. It's very much a political movement. And I agree that we ought to consider it the same way as we consider communism or Marxism. It's designed to take over all the economic things of a culture, all the political. Just imagine America living under Sharia law. It's unimaginable to me. But that's their goal. And right now, they're saying death to America. That's on the Houthi flag in Yemen. They're in Iran, they're calling us the great Satan. They view us as the largest obstacle to the spread of Islam around the world. Let's take them at their word and let's believe it and let's respond. Not on our shores. You don't get to do that here.
It will shock you how much it never happened.
Heritage Senior Fellow Mike Gonzalez testified before Congress this week and said what a whole bunch of us are thinking, that the Smithsonian has gone so incomprehensibly woke that things need to change. And that starts at the very top with Secretary Lonnie Bunch. Unfortunately, it's not that easy to can't just go fire everybody at the Smithsonian. Not yet. There's a way to do it. But first, let's go to Mike Gonzalez and his testimony.
Mr. Gonzalez for his opening statement.
Chairman, ranking member, members of this committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. Following Election Day 2024, Thomas Frank published an op-ed in the New York Times, suitably titled, "The Elites Had It Coming." Here's what Frank, who's a liberal, wrote. Everyone has a moment when he first realized that Donald Trump might well return, and here is mine. It was back in March during a visit to the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery when I happened to read a text beside an old painting. It described the westward advance of the United States as settler colonialism. I knew instantly where this nation was going. Some curator at one of our most exalted institutions had decided to use morally loaded academic keyword to address a visitor to the museum, say a family from the Midwest, and teach them a lesson about American wickedness, unquote. Teaching lessons about American wickedness is now the mission of the Smithsonian. It is the intent of the leadership, and it is precisely what they trained the staff to do. Secretary Lonnie Bunch III, Anthea Hardig, the director of the National Museum of American History and one of today's witnesses, and other museum leaders have commandeered the world's largest museum complex and admit that they intend to use it as a tool of societal transformation. This is not why Americans entrusted these institutions to them. Culture is not passed in the bloodstream. National museums are repositories of a nation's collective inheritance so that it can be transmitted to future generations. However, the Smithsonian's leadership has subverted this mission. Under Dr. Hardig, the History Museum has erased 2 words from the mission statement. The first is history itself. The word history had to go because Dr. Hardig preferred the museum to be, quote, very future-facing. The other word that disappeared in the new mission statement was America itself. Director Hardig said the term America should include, quote, the entirety of the Americas, not just our part of North America. She also said that loving America is complicated. Dr. Hardig, the director of the National Museum of American History, has deconstructed the museum's mission statement to borrow terms of the postmodernists who clearly guide her work. We're here today, as you said, because on July 4th, the White House released a devastating report focusing on Anthea Hardig's museum and the agenda that she pushes. Read the report and you will find that it is not just postmodernism that guides the leadership. They see the world in terms of power dynamics, who has dominance, and how to wrest it from them by dismantling the American narrative. This is deeply Marxist and Gramscian. In fact, the action toolkit that leadership used to indoctrinate staff at the Smithsonian for years even quotes approvingly from the works of the Frankfurt School's critical theorist, Herbert Marcuse. You can understand why Bunch began his tenure by tying the institution to 2 ideological and destructive movements, the 1619 Project and Black Lives Matter. BLM's main leader had made clear in 2019 that the group's goal was to, quote, keep dismantling the organizing principle of this society, unquote. Yet, in July 2020, as the country was burning, Lonnie Bunch wrote that he saw a moment of promise and possibility. Bunch said that the Smithsonian would legitimize the 1619 Project, except that historians from both sides of the spectrum decried the shoddy scholarship and inaccuracies of the 1619 Project. For ideological reasons, Lonnie Bunch put the Smithsonian's reputation at serious risk, and Director Hardig endorsed all of it, pledging to, quote, work to reframe the traditional celebratory narrative of U.S. history, unquote, to force a, quote, national reckoning. National reckoning from a history museum? This erasure of American culture must end now. As Stanley Kurtz wrote last week, you can say that the economy and foreign policy are more important than these cultural battles. Over the long haul, however, that is simply not true, unquote. You need to clean house and relieve all Smithsonian leadership of their duties. Also, deauthorize the yet-to-be-built Latino and women's museums, which will no doubt become 2 more incubators of anti-American grievances. We can see this in the precursor exhibits that they've had. Loving America is not complicated. Dr. Hardig is wrong. I implore you to do your jobs. Thank you for your attention.
It is crystal clear that the Smithsonian is so woke, it has to be fixed. It is broken. It's not something that we can just call for a boycott. It's like every year when I call for the boycott of the NFL, it ain't going to happen. Just as people aren't going to stop going to the Smithsonian no matter how woke it gets, and it's gotten about as woke as possible. So we've got to remove Lonnie Bunch, the secretary of the Smithsonian. Unfortunately, President Trump can't just do that. The only people who have the power to remove Lonnie Bunch as secretary and thereby work their way down and start removing leadership would be the Board of Regents. The Board of Regents is made up of 17 people. The Chancellor is always the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Yes, John Roberts is the Chancellor. You also have the sitting member, which is always the Vice President of the United States. Yes, that's J.D. Vance. You have 3 members of Congress, 3 senators, and then 9 civilians makes up the 17-person board. And you need a majority of them to say he's out. Unfortunately, that's going to take some time. Now, we do have 2 of the members have left. So we're getting there. We're getting closer. But it's going to take some effort. And unfortunately, I wish I could give you all some super awesome, amazing news, but this isn't something where President Trump can wave an executive magic wand and make it happen. It's going to take effort. It's going to take the help of Congress, which picks the members of the board. It's not an easy scenario for us to be able to wade through. And unfortunately, it's an important one. I know, look, oh, what is the Smithsonian? That's not important. It's not, okay? It really isn't. But it is an indoctrination factory. We're talking about tens of millions of people who get to be exposed to the wokeness. Now, I'm not saying that all of them are going to be suddenly indoctrinated because the Smithsonian makes itself look stupid with their idiocy about hating America. Hopefully, people will just ignore it, or maybe say, "Oh, wow, I didn't realize Smithsonian had gone so woke. Let's go watch a baseball game instead." Something. I just know it's frustrating because this is one of those situations where it's like, oh, I know that this really needs to change. I don't want to wait for the whole process for it to change because, frankly, I don't think that it'll happen. I don't think that we have the will or the determination to make it happen. And at the end of the day, I'm going to have to fall back on the notion that it's just not that important. We got bigger fish to fry. But that doesn't change the fact that it sucks.
It's the smell.
Being a leftist in America, to me, has always been more of a performative art. It's sort of like, you go out there, you put on your costume, you practice your accent, you practice your voice, and then you go perform for the audience. Generally speaking, it'll be like a crowd of blue-haired college students, and as well as blue-haired boomers. For some reason, I've never understood that whole mix there, but it seems to be the case. And it's never been worse than right now. We're living through the worst aspect of this performative type of politics with the Democrat Socialists of America. They're theater kids. It's a phrase I don't actually even understand, but you know what? We're rolling with it. Seen a lot of people using that phrase lately, and I think I'm using it right. So we're going to go with that. Scott Jennings probably knows what theater kids are, and he had some thoughts, quite a few thoughts, as a matter of fact, about people such as Hassan Piker, AOC. These are the modern day performative Democrats, and really they're Marxists.
You know something that has been on my mind, and little instances of it continue to pop up on my social media feed, or I see it in the news clippings, and it is generally, to me, described as thus: performative costumery by Democrats, and just how vital that is to their project. This weekend, I noted that the communist podcaster, influencer, opinion leader, Democratic Party gatekeeper named Hassan Piker was invited to speak to the College Democrats convention. And Piker, if you don't know who this is, he's very popular on the left. He right now is kind of dictating what candidates and campaigns talk about. He's one of the leading purveyors of the socialist communist movement of the Democratic Party. So he gets invited to the to the National College Democrat. I have Michigan on my mind because he's been promoting Abdul al-Sayed up there. But Piker goes to this big College Democrat convention, and he's wearing a full Chairman Mao suit, a Mao Zedong style suit. That's what he wears to address the College Democrats. That's one example. Then, of course, you look at individual campaigns. Graham Plattner up in Maine, God rest his political soul. But before he had to drop out, they had him dressed up in what they perceived to be the working class uniform. Now they have this Troy Jackson. They've got him dressed up in his supposed logging attire. This guy's a creature of main state politics, by the way. And then I see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It spills over from costumes to even the affect of their speech, the accent that they use when talking to audiences. It's all part of the same play. We have to pretend to be something. We have to pretend to be working class. So we dress up in a costume. In AOC's case, I have to pretend that I care about black Christian Democrats. I want you to listen to her accent. Now, this is AOC from New York City. I want you to listen to this tape carefully. Listen to the accent that she puts on while speaking to African American voters, many of them Christians, in Tennessee just a couple of days ago. Cut 7.
And the efforts that it took for them to get to that moment, we must double as we descend here on Memphis to organize and care for our brothers and sisters. We cannot afford to leave Tennessee behind. We cannot afford to leave Kentucky behind, Alabama behind, Mississippi behind, Georgia behind, South Carolina behind. There is no country when we are split apart. About a month or two ago, we were in Montgomery, Alabama. Sister Presley and I were in Montgomery, Alabama. And one of the things that we said was that it is time for the North to roll up to the South. We will not be chased out of places anymore, brothers and sisters. It is going to take all of us together, rejecting the separation, for us to organize and speak life into one another, because we will see the day where we will turn the crooked path straight, Memphis.
Did you hear that? Behind. They can't help it. It's not the first time you've heard this, by the way. Hillary Clinton did this. Kamala Harris did this. These Democrats are performers. They're actors. They're fakers. They dress up. They put on accents. It's all a big theater production for these communists. And it's embarrassing.
And I am embarrassed for them. They are communists. They are idiots. You know, here's the funny part. If you think about it, Democratic Socialists of America, it's a total lie. They're not Democrats. They latch on to the Democrat Party, but they're really not Democrats. I mean, you could say that they're going to infect the Democrat Party or are in the process of taking it over. So, but still, their intention is to move away from democracy anyway. So there's that. You can't really say that aspect of it is true. They're not socialists either. Socialists are far to the right of where these guys are. These are full-blown Marxists. If you prefer to call them communists, that's fine. But the socialism aspect of it, it's just a minor. That's like a stepping stone for them. It's like, oh, okay, so you're a moderate Democrat, and then you hop on the stepping stone of socialism, and then boom, you just jump right over to full-blown Marxism. And as far as of America, no, they're not of America. They're against America. They're anti-American. They're trying to destroy America. So, yeah, the whole DSA label is a triple lie. Just thought of that. But anyway, speaking of thinking of things, Seth Moulton, okay, one of my, I don't want to say he's dangerous. He's annoying, okay? He's one of the most annoying Democrats out there. But he had about 45 or 50 seconds of actually pretty decent thoughts. I know. If you've ever listened to this guy, you're like, this guy can't put together a decent thought. But that's what the DSA has done. They have taken some of the worst Democrats out there and force them to sort of occasionally, every now and then, make sense.
There are a lot of people in America who feel that the Democratic Party is out of touch. We can't be honest about what's going on, with immigration. We don't have a plan for immigration. We're not able to say what actually Democrats should do to fix the problem. All we are is opposition to Trump. Under Biden, we said inflation is not really a big deal. It's transitory. It's going to go away. And then the whole party said, hey, don't worry. Everything's great. Joe is awesome. He can run for re-election. So the point is we have this history of kind of just like washing over problems and not addressing real concerns that voters have. We got to make sure we don't do that in Arizona.
Okay, but we've got to make sure. Do you think you're doing that now? Because look no further than a state just north of you, Maine, where I kind of feel like that happened 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think that's honest. I mean, to be honest, it's a problem. It's still a problem.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day. And the DSA is sure breaking the Democrats' clocks all around, forcing them to understand and appreciate that no matter how woke you are, no matter how progressive you are, you'll never be progressive enough for the DSA unless you full-blown kiss the ring and embrace Satan and hate America. That's it. That's all they got. Harold Ford Jr., former representative, Democrat, said it even more plainly than Seth Moulton. So I think he was on CNN. Let's see.
No borders, no prisons, no police, supporting Hamas. We've been saying this on the show. I've said it for a while. I'm Van Jones, who I think is one of the more thoughtful voices and has been a leader in the party, working in the White House. I don't quite understand some of the appeal to what some of these guys are talking about. I understand the frustration, the economic frustration. I understand frustration with some of our policies in the Middle East over the years, or for that matter, over the decades. But to say that supporting an organization that exacts and imposes violence on people because of their faith, to say that we don't want to have borders for our country and allow any and everyone to come in, even the worst of the worst, to say that you want no law enforcement and no place to put those who commit crimes, I don't know how that aligns or has ever aligned with the Democratic Party. Ideas are what win elections. I would suggest to Senator Sanders and others that if you look at the most recent polling data, you guys are looking at the polling data, which are the most reliable elections where some of the progressives are winning these elections. You look at the recent polling data about how Democrats are faring right now in the national races for Congress. We're in a dead heat with Republicans. And if you listen to those independents and others and some Republicans, it's because they are afraid of this message. They are afraid of the socialist communist wing of the party. Now, you may get a lot of excitement there, and I've been a part of a lot of rallies over my short time in politics. I grew up in a political family. I'm 56 years old, and I've seen anger turn into enthusiasm.
You look amazing.
But that enthusiasm is really predicated and really motivated around how are we going to solve real problems. No prisons, no borders, no police. Supporting Hamas is not an answer to solving the economic challenges facing so many Americans. It's not a solution to our broken foreign policy policies that we have in our country that are not working, whether it be in Iran or in other places. We live in a country where we've always had challenges, and we've had people roll up their sleeves and get to work. We don't have people rolling up their sleeves and saying, we're going to quit. We're going to quit capitalism. We're going to quit democracy. And we're going to go to socialism. We do that, it will get far worse. And Democrats, if we find independents and even some Democrats leaving us in the fall, come October, November, or when early voting starts in these key states, we will have only ourselves to blame if we continue to embrace a group of people whose ideas are not only anti-Democrat party, but anti-American.
Dang. I guess he's not going to get an invite to AOC's nomination party in 2028. He's going to get voted off the island any second now. Probably already is. Some, even on the right, are really getting more aggressive. Okay, and I'm not talking about me or any of podcasters. I'm saying actual politicians are. Lisa McClain, she was pure fire, and there were a lot of people that were speaking against Marxism, a lot of representatives that were speaking the other day about it, led by, of course, Mike Johnson. But I like what McClain has to say here.
Scarcity is actually the result. The Soviet Union promised equality, then delivered breadlines. It promised security, then built a society of surveillance and fear. It promised liberation, then trapped millions of people behind an iron curtain. That's where that road to communism leads. Yet the radical left is selling the same lie in America today. They've polished their branding, right? They've prettied it up. They've packaged it for social media and marketed it to young Americans and college campuses all over the world. They've packaged it as compassion, and they've made promises that they can't keep. But a friendlier name does not change the ideology, and it certainly does not change the end game. This is no longer confined to the margins. Communism has taken root in our universities, our largest cities, and it has taken root in the Democratic Party. Every attack on private property, every demand for greater government control, and every lesson teaching young Americans to despise capitalism drives those roots deeper. That's why every single Democrat voted to raise your taxes. They want to take your hard-earned money away from you and make sure that that hard-earned money goes to help somebody else. Because somebody has to pay for everything that's free. Because last I checked, the farmers don't farm for free, the teachers don't teach for free, and grocery stores don't give away free food. Somebody actually has to pay for that. Just ask them who's paying. I'm going to tell you it's the producers.
All right, let's finish up with who is it? Jesse Waters. There we go. Talking about, this is from last night's show, he's talking about the war, President Trump, plans for Iran. I know I haven't talked a lot about it, and it's because, how should I say this? I am in wait-and-see mode. Look, don't get me wrong. I totally support President Trump. I want to win this war. I want to decimate the Iranian regime. I don't want them to have nukes. I don't want the Strait of Hormuz to ever be closed down again. But I've got my concerns. And that's why I'm just not chiming in, because this is one of those situations. I want to be clear. When I take on a subject, it's because I want to do something about it. Earlier, it's talking about the Smithsonian. That's as close as I get to ranting without solution, okay? And I have rants. I have rants regarding how the Iran war is going. But I'm not going to voice them, because I can't change anything. There's a line, I forgot what the movie, Ender's Game, where at the end, one of the characters tells another character, he's like, what is he doing? Or why is he's leaving his ships behind? And the Harrison Ford character says, he's in control now. And that's it. Like, they both were questioning what was happening, but nothing they can do about it. It's heat of the moment, heat of the battle. We're here. We're going. I have to trust President Trump, trust our fantastic military, trust Pete Hegseth, and of course, trust God. And I do trust God. So pray for the troops. Pray for victory. But I'm not going to rant about that. With that said, here is Jesse Waters, and he doesn't have to rant because he's all full-blown, just go, do it.
Fox News alert, it's on. U.S. Central Command launching crippling strikes against Iran. Command centers, missile and drone launch sites, and air defense systems wiped out along the coastline. This new offensive aimed at pushing back what's left of the enemy's firepower far away from reaching the strait. The commander-in-chief now calling his shots, like the Babe.
How about these people? They're in this because of nuclear weapons, and they're trying to possibly reconstitute a site. We'll hit that site. Any site where they're even thinking about nuclear, we'll be hitting it very, very powerfully.
Pickaxe Mountains in the crosshairs. The Israelis are leaking to the media that the Iranians moved centrifuges under the mountain after Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated their 3 main sites, a.k.a. it's their little plan B, like 3-card Monte, if they ever get their hands on more uranium.
Do you believe that Iran has moved nuclear centrifuges into Pickaxe Mountain?
It doesn't mean anything unless they have the material. They don't have. We follow the material. That's where the action is. And we'll be hitting that area probably pretty soon. And there's not a thing they can do about it.
The nuclear dusk has been buried. Their nuclear program's over. So what are they doing in an underground lair? And why is it 6,000 feet deep?
Do we have the ability to destroy whatever is underneath Pickaxe Mountain?
Senator, a lot of our capabilities are classified, but if anybody in the world can reach anything on God's green earth, it's the United States military, the most powerful military in the world. It's all about options and trade-offs.
The option on the president's desk right now is an all-out war. That would include Pickaxe. Sources say Israel would come in to help deliver the final blow. The Israelis are already on high alert and preparing to go full scale. F-16s and F-35s are moving into theater, and refueling planes are being pre-positioned. The Iranians say they still want to negotiate, but talks are off. The United States says they're not coming back into the table until the Iranians show they're serious.
Iran's been given every opportunity to negotiate, to show that they're reasonable on the Strait of Hormuz. But if they're going to shoot at commercial shipping, then we're going to hit them, as the president said, 10 times harder, which every night we're degrading them further and further. And the president has all the options necessary. If they want to talk, they can talk. Otherwise, they can deal with the War Department.
The other option on the table, a 10-day ceasefire, a cooling off period, which the Iranians desperately need.
Mr. President, there are no signs that Iran is ready to stop fighting. So what is the plan? Is the plan to just keep bombing until they give up?
There are no signs. Why, do you know something that I don't know?
Well, they continue to attack our allies and kill Americans.
You don't know what the dialogue is behind the scenes, that they want to meet desperately to try and end it because they're getting decimated. You don't get that when you listen to your fake station.
While we're dropping bombs, the commander-in-chief's playing diplomat. The president's peeling Lebanon away from the gay Ayatollah. The Lebanese president visited the White House today. It was the first time in 15 years. It was quite chummy.
Mr. President, it's an honor having you. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this visit for a long time.
Thank you very much.
Meeting such a great president like yourself.
That's a very nice thing. See, he knows how to get to me. He can have anything.
Trump shattered the entire network of Iranian alliances. The War Department is looking to train, equip, and vet elite army units in Lebanon to go in and purge and disarm Hezbollah for good. This keeps Israel from having to do the dirty work, which Lebanon likes quite a bit. And it could even bring Lebanon into the Abraham Accords. Iran's other proxies, the Houthis, could set up their own blockade in the Red Sea. Now, that's another key choke point like Hormuz. Shipping goes north and south through the Mediterranean, connecting Europe to the Middle East and Asia. Iran's trying to terrorize the main artery of world trade. Now, if the Houthis get frisky, there could be trouble.
What is your level of concern of a blockade of the Red Sea by the Houthi rebels, opening up another front in the war?
What happens? So far, it hasn't happened, might happen. But we take care of things. If something like that happens, we take care of it.
The U.S. Navy will keep the oil flowing and protected from piracy. Over 500 million barrels of oil sailed right under the nose of Iran during Project Freedom. And we have bases on the Horn of Africa ready to do their duty. Hegseth testified today that we are in total control of traffic. Our guided missile destroyers, like the USS Mason, continue to sail the seas, and morale on board sky high. Iran's terrorizing the Strait because it's their only leverage. But they're going to lose that leverage, not just because of U.S. air power, but because Gulf countries are skipping the Strait. Iraq just visited the White House, and they signed off on Chevron finishing a pipeline from Baghdad to Syria into the Mediterranean. Iran won't be able to clip any tankers because the tankers will be off the coast of Greece. Chevron's also going to drill, baby, drill in southern Iraq. And ConocoPhillips just took a huge stake in Iraqi oil. Remember Trump said we should have taken the oil? Well, there you go. Starlink is going to start operating in Iraq. Even J.P. Morgan is going to open a Baghdad branch. Those deals are worth $60 billion. So we've pulled Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon away from the mullahs. And we're selling the Arabs $2 trillion in AI, plus weapons. Russia and China aren't even in the sandbox. The president setting the table. And now the Iranian economy is on the brink.
We have found the money man for the Ayatollah, and we hope to soon be able to print his $100 million plus properties and show the addresses. Their currency has collapsed. It is at an all-time low versus the dollar. It's in free fall. And we think the inflation rate is upwards of 180%.
Iran's sugar daddy, China, alligator arms. Crude purchases down 40%. Venezuela, even worse. Big mistake by Beijing to build their energy supplies off sanctioned rogues, now surrounded by Pistol Pete. Our Arab allies believe that Iran's about to tap. Their economy's in tatters and their currency's cratering. Yep, they're still shooting, but they can't keep up.
Iran is at the weakest point militarily it has ever been in the past decade. Certainly, maybe in 47 years, as they've gathered effectively a terror army. So I acknowledge they still have capabilities, no doubt. But the amount of damage that we've done to them over the course of these series of operations has put them in the worst place they've ever been.
The mission's expensive. There's no doubt about it. The president argues it is worth the cost. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, he says, or a military that can jack up U.S. energy prices. Hegseth and General Raisin Kane testified on Capitol Hill today to say we have to finish the job. But they need money. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs says the character of war is changing, and Biden left them with an empty war chest.
The Biden administration ignored hypersonics. They just decided to pretend like that technology didn't exist and we shouldn't invest in it. There are things. I don't know what Lloyd Austin did for 4 years. I really don't. Well, I'm sure the amount of neglect, the amount of stale thinking and bureaucracy, it was staggering when we took over.
Democrats at the hearing did talk a lot about winning the war, but they mostly meant the war in Ukraine.
We're at a moment in history where we can win the war in Ukraine. That victory would be critically important for those people who have fought for more than 4 years against the odds and proven they can put Putin back on his heels. But instead of finding the money that they need now for air defenses, we're putting more money into this exchange with Iran, a war of choice which we never should have entered.
Did the Democrats say we have to win the war in Iran? I didn't hear it. They all said we have to win the war in Ukraine. Guys, the U.S. is at war now. No one's shooting at Americans in Europe. They're shooting at Americans in the Strait.
I appreciate as much as anybody winning a war, but I sit in front of a committee that wants to talk about winning a war that's been going on for 4 years and talks about strategic defeat of a conflict that's been going on for 4 months to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. I would hope for some perspective in this town of the historic nature of what President Trump is undertaking. Do you want radical Islamists to have a nuclear bomb that can stare down the world?
Because I have limited time.
I don't understand.
If you can't answer my question, then I will move on to my next question.
Obama and Biden sent money to Iran. They used it to buy missiles, launch them at our troops, and now the Democrats don't want to send money to the Pentagon to keep them safe. They want to give money to Zelensky, but not Trump. The Democrats want to win the midterms. They don't want to win the war in Iran. Now, it was back and forth all afternoon until Pete finally erupted.
You don't have a strategy. You don't have a long-term plan to actually win this war. Win the war. The men and women are going to be able to do it, but they need to have leadership. When will you show leadership?
We have leadership.
When will you show
leadership? Why don't you show some leadership and stand up to your fellow Democrats who won't fund the troops, who stand and play partisan politics while you don't give us the money? You want to stand up here and talk about the troops? You won't show any political courage to actually fund our department because you have Trump derangement syndrome and can't actually commit to anything meaningful.
That's the Pete Hegseth that I like. When he's on fire, he's on fire. I want him to stay on fire. The Department of War needs him to be on fire so that our enemies can be on fire. Horrible, horrible, horrible joke. Lord willing, I'll be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, y'all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.